Hello, so today's episode is for the woman who's tried everything for her skin and still feels stuck. Because adult acne and chronic skin issues are rarely about your cleanser or skincare. Most of the time, your skin is just a downstream sign that something deeper is off, like gut imbalance, liver overload, hormonal shifts, and chronic stress that the body hasn't been able to downshift from. I'm joined by Katie Stewart, a holistic nutritionist and acne specialist, who helps women understand what their skin is really telling them. We talk about why surface fixes fail and what's driving breakouts in your 30s, 40s and beyond, and how nervous system regulation plays a much bigger role than most women realise. You're listening to the Becca Holland Show. I'm Becca, and let's get straight into it. Thank you so much, Katie. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Becca, I've been actually really looking forward to this. I was kind of stalking your Instagram when your team reached out. I was like, oh my gosh, I love her.
Oh, great. Oh, I'm delighted.
I'm excited.
Initially, when I reached out to you, I was just saying in the conversation before this, I am so interested in the skin piece of all this. And I feel like it's one of the most neglected areas of health because people are like, just, put a cream on it, isn't it? Or change your nutrition. I think there's this massive nutrition focus. A teenager, just stop eating greasy food and your skin will be perfect. Same with adult acne. They're just like, take care of your stress and your skin will be fine. So I think the nuance is going to be so interesting today, like really understanding all the different pathways that influence the quality of your skin. I know you predominantly deal with like the more chronic skin issues, like even the psoriasis piece and real inflammation of skin. And as I said to you, I had urticaria, the rash in your skin. So all of them things, and I've seen it so much with clients, they're just a symptom and we're trying to discover the root cause. So, you probably every day speak about that, the connection to the gut, the nervous system and all the pieces in between. So I cannot wait to pick your brains about the real nuances of this that I'd say a lot of us don't really understand. So I'm going to start with someone dealing with adult acne. What are the most common kind of internal systems you look at first? Because I know you're not really looking at the skin at the start. You're looking at all the other factors. So yeah, I'd love to dig into that.
Yeah, and I think acne is one of the most misunderstood health issues that we deal with because from an outside perspective, like you said, it's apply a cream, don't eat chocolate, avoid greasy foods. And it's so much more multifaceted than that. So when we look at clients, we really work off of what we call the 5 acne clearing pillars. First is going to be gut health. And each one of these pillars, we have to remember it's almost like an umbrella because underneath that umbrella of gut health, it's not just, take a probiotic. There's a dozen different things that could be happening within your gut. So we're looking at our gut health. We're looking at our detoxification organs. We're looking at our hormones, our nervous system regulation, and also our topical skin health. So that would be like skin barrier and all of that. But it's never just one of these pillars because we have so many clients that, or even my audience, they're like, oh my gosh, Katie, I have hormonal acne. And I like to say, yes, and. You have hormonal acne and it is not just your hormones because our body doesn't work in silos. Our body is like an open concept workspace where everything is feeding into each other. So out of the over 3,000 acne sufferers we worked with, they've never come in and had just issues with their gut or just issues with their hormones. It's always a combination of the 5 pillars and every client's going to be a little bit different. Maybe client A is a little more gut heavy and a little less detox heavy, and then client B is a little more blood sugar heavy and a little less gut. So you really need to be looking at the person as an individual versus taking that blanket approach.
Yeah, I love that. I think you touched on a word there around the liver and detoxification. I think that's one that's greatly misunderstood. And I think we associate the liver with, if you just cut out alcohol, isn't it so simple? Of course, our liver is going to be working well. But I'd love to delve deeper into that and all the misconceptions around detoxification and the liver.
And I think when you hear the word detox, you automatically think of the liver because he's the main organ of detoxification, does over 500 functions in the body, pretty hard working system. But we forget that there's many organs of detoxification. Like your skin is your largest organ for detoxification. So when your other detox organs, like your liver, get overwhelmed, your skin's going to take the brunt of it. We also have to be looking at our kidneys. It's a filtration system, our lymphatic system, which is heavily overlooked. Our lungs are part of our detox system, and even our colon. So we want to be looking at our detox systems as a whole. And when we are looking at our liver, it's more than just, you need to cut drinking alcohol and you need to drink more water. Because in our society, we've been inundated, especially in the last 100 years, with so many chemicals and toxins in our food, our water, our everyday environment. Like it's impossible to get rid of toxins. So, 150, 200 years ago, our liver and detox systems didn't have all of this overburden of toxins to filter. But these days with the medications and everything in our systems, these systems really, really take a hit. and it can cause it to kind of have a backlog. And like I just said, is if our liver is overwhelmed, it's like, hey, skin, I have a lot to get rid of. You're going to need to step in and take some of this load. And then that goes to the pores, it inflames and leads to breakouts.
Wow, that's a really great, like, you really did a nice little summary of that there, because especially the piece of endocrine disruptors, and almost now lymphatic drainage is like a non-negotiable, because our lymph system has to be working so efficiently to filtrate a lot of things. So I think that's a great point as well. It's not just, do a liver cleanse and you're fixed. It's, again, acknowledging there's multifactorial things at play here, and even understanding it doesn't have to be overly complicated, but you do have to have that basic understanding of there is a lot of things at play here. And like you say, that client, it's not going to be just gut issues that affects her skin. Another client, it's not just going to be the liver. And it's just understanding there's probably that overall big framework, but then it gets much more specific with the individual, I think.
Absolutely.
And then piecing together a strategy to fix your skin can be incredibly frustrating, because, again, difficult to identify the main pathways you need to work on. And how does that work for you when you look at a client and they're presenting with, adult acne, for example? How do you strip it back to day one? And what are they doing to understand what are the areas of most focus they specifically as an individual need?
Absolutely. So with every single client that comes in, we look at a combination of their health history, because your current health status is an accumulation of everything that's happened from basically conception in the womb up until this moment in time. So we really need to be looking at what's happened over your lifetime. What types of illnesses have you had? What types of medications? Have you had food poisoning? Like anything you've been exposed to, mold factors. There's so much to consider for your health history. Then we need to be looking at, well, what's your current symptoms saying? Because we want to be looking at that individual. And then we are really big advocates of functional medicine testing. Of testing and not guessing, because acne sufferers have done enough guessing with their skin. They've thrown enough spaghetti at the wall. So we utilize functional medicine testing. Every client that comes in gets a hair trace mineral analysis. We can do Dutch tests, GI maps to really see like what imbalances are in the body that's leading to acne. Because when clients come in, they always say, Katie, I've literally done everything under the sun. There's nothing I haven't done for my skin. And I say, good news, if you truly done everything, your acne would be gone, because acne is an external symptom of an internal issue. And I love when clients get that first HTMA test results back and they sit down with us and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. I would have never guessed that I had these blood sugar issues that are driving this. I would have never guessed that I had low stomach acid. That was a big culprit here. So it's really looking at the combination of their health history, their current systems, and their lab results to say, okay, Becca, like these are the things that's going wrong in your body, and here's the pathway to fix it.
I just want to touch on for a second, Katie's in Canada, and you're probably a lot more progressive than other places in terms of functional health practice and holistic health and naturopaths. For other parts of the world, getting like the comprehensive testing done is extremely expensive. Is there other ways to find avenues to understand what's happening in the body without going to the testing, or not?
Yes, and I'll say is yes, we can be looking at your symptoms, your health history, and say, okay, based on, Sarah's health history, we know she, has a history of being exposed to parasites and she has chronic bloat. So it would take a little bit more time, because you kind of have to do that detective work. And you're basically playing a game of chess with the body, making a move, seeing how the body responds, and then shifting that way. And we've worked with over 3,000 clients in 15 different countries, and we're actually able to do functional medicine testing no matter where they are in the world.
So if somebody is, and you've probably seen this so many times with all the clients, and somebody is trying everything, okay, and they feel like this is just something genetic, and they have consistent adult acne that persists from their 30s to 40s and beyond. And like that person you mentioned, like they might have tried a lot of solutions. Is there somebody that is just, that's it, they're stuck with adult acne?
It's been very, very few cases where we truly, it's not that we weren't able to help them, it's that it was outside of our scope of practice, where they had a very extensive, multifaceted health issues, like very severe health issues. So in those cases, we will always refer them to a practitioner who is in that scope of practice. When it comes to acne, we've never looked at someone and said, oh, it's just genetic. There's nothing we can do here. You're stuck with it for life. We have seen so many very complex cases where they've been dealing with acne for 20, 30 years, told your only option is Accutane, have done 6, 7 rounds of Accutane. Acne comes back every time. And when we look at their imbalances and we spend enough time, patience, and consistency working through those imbalances, we have seen absolute miracles happen. And I think one of the biggest things that people need to understand is what I just said, the acne clearing trifecta: time, patience, consistency. You need to give your body time to heal. It is not going to be a quick 3 months and all of your last 20 years of health issues are going to be cleared up. You have to be giving your body time to work through self-healing these systems.
That's really good to hear, because I think so much people are at a point with their skin where they think, my sister has this too, my mother always had it as well. This is what I have, this is the way it is. And even a person that's, lean, healthy body weight, they don't have gut issues, not bloating, they have good digestion, they overall have great energy, but they still, even though a person in many levels is very healthy, but they're still presenting with this really chronic acne. And that's the person I'm most interested in, because I think it's quite easy when you think of a person that just needs to do a lot more deeper regulation, because a lot of their skin issues are inflammation and the chronic stress is driving that inflammation. But a person that seems regulated, has blood sugar balancing food, good habits when it comes to the gut, I presume that's a lot of the person you would see. What are usually the factors that cause that when it's the ones that are not obvious at all?
I know, because we have the majority of our clients coming in and they're like, Katie, I am so healthy. I don't eat gluten. I don't eat dairy. I avoid sugar. I work out. I do stress response. Like, they're looking at this whole picture. And from the outside, they're a very healthy person looking at the average North American or just the average person. And when we get those scenarios, which is the majority of them, I'll give you an example of a client. So we had one client come in. She's like, I've done Whole30, I've done celery juicing, I take all the supplements, I've done functional labs, I've done the blood labs, and no one's been able to figure out what's going on. So when we looked at her, we uncovered that she had a dysbiosis, so an imbalance of good and bad bacteria in her gut. She had low stomach acid. She was dealing with histamine sensitivities. So not only was she dealing with acne, she had rashes, she had migraines, she had chronic itchy eyes. She had really chronic bloat, and she was also dealing with blood sugar instability and some methylation issues. But from the outside, she's eating a really healthy diet. So she couldn't really figure out what was going on. So I always remind people that when you are eating healthy and, doing all these things, there can still be deeper imbalances that eating healthy alone isn't going to be enough. So in her case, we had to say, okay, we need to do this in stages. We need to set the foundations. We need to first make sure you're eating enough food in the day, because so many of our clients are chronic undereaters. They're skipping meals. So getting those foundations in place, we worked on supporting her low stomach acid, making sure she was able to break her food down. And then we were able to move into rebalancing her gut microbiome, which was a very specific protocol of certain foods, specific antifungal supplements, biofilm busters, a whole bunch of different things that were geared to her and her lab results. When working through, and just that alone took 5 months. And then from there, we had to go in and, start supporting her methylation pathways and everything. So on the outside looking in, very, very healthy, but from the inside, there were imbalances that the healthy eating alone wasn't catching.
That's so fantastic to hear. You really succinctly probably described what so much people are experiencing and feeling so in the dark, because like you said, the things you just mentioned are not our go-tos when you would think, oh, what's wrong with my gut or what's wrong with my skin? So that's incredibly beneficial in understanding that person who seems extremely health focused and is doing a lot of things right. There are things that are, the body's trying to do its best to keep healthy, and it is presenting healthy in multiple ways, but there's symptoms like the skin that will show there's something not fully right internally. So yeah, I think that's really powerful to understand. And I think when women are past 30 as well, and you touched on histamines there, histamine imbalance becomes more prominent. You see it more often with histamine. And is that a big connection with women who are experiencing acne for the first time, maybe in their 40s, because the interaction of what's happening with fluctuations in perimenopause?
I would say it's yes and no. It's not as common. I would say it's the most common imbalance we see is histamine. I would say we see it in maybe like 15% of our client cases. So the majority of the clients that we work with are like their 27 to 45 age range. So that like millennial woman. We do have clients early 20s, 50s, and 60s, but that's the bulk of it. So we see that when you're in your late 30s, you're getting into your early 40s, we know there's going to be that perimenopausal shifts that are happening, those hormonal shifts that are happening. But we also have to, again, look at what's happened over the course of your life that's compounded all of these health issues in your body. It's like, did you take the birth control pill for 15 years? Were you on antibiotics for, on and off for your skin? Did you have, pregnancy losses, miscarriages? Did you go through a fertility journey? Do you have children? Do you have all of this chronic stress? Are you in this point in your career where your emotional nervous system regulation is so just off the charts? You've spent the last 8 years maybe, not eating enough food, skipping meals, living off of coffee and grabbing, a muffin at Starbucks in order to get through your day. And you're also doing HIIT classes. So like your cortisol is through the roof. So we really see that for those late 30s, early 40s, it's very much a compounding of lifestyle habits that's kind of catching up with them.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And that stereotype of the person that's burning the candle at both ends. And that's the person who will have that presentation of the acne on the skin. That's really interesting to hear. And do you see, just when you mention it, people noticing it past their 40s and adult acne is happening later in life?
I'd say our clients are about 50-50. Half of the clients have been dealing with it since they're like 12, 13 years old. They're like, I've had acne for 20 to 30 years. Then we have our other half of our clients where they're like, this literally came out of nowhere. I'm 36 and I'm having acne for the first time and I don't know what's happening. So we see kind of the both sides to that.
Wow, that's a really good stat to understand, because 50% is way more than I would have assumed. I would have thought a much larger percentage would have had acne for decades, like since they were a teenager.
Yeah, maybe 60-40, like it depends on the year. But we do definitely see a lot of women, especially those that are coming off the birth control pill for the first time, right? They've had clear skin most of their life, and then they come off in maybe their early 30s because they don't want to take it anymore. They've heard how bad it is for them. They want to try for a family, all of those different reasons. And then all of a sudden, boom, their skin is exploding and they don't know what's happening.
And what is happening when the interaction of coming off the pill, what is happening with the skin?
So with the birth control pill, for decades, especially as millennial women, we were told, oh, take the birth control pill. It balances your hormones. It gets rid of all of your period issues. It's great. Just take it. And I was in that group. I started taking it when I was 14, didn't need it, wasn't having sex, had fine skin, normal periods, but all my girlfriends took it. So I'm like, oh, this is just what you do. So I'm going to take it. And I took it for another decade. And I find so many women are in that same boat where they've taken it for years and they don't know how it impacts your body. But the pill has a really big impact on your body. One, it can actually alter your gut's microbiome. And when that happens, you get too much bad bacteria and yeast in your gut, which can be leading to leaky gut, leading to inflammation and cascading down into acne. We also see it's going to be overwhelming our liver. So because our liver is going to be filtering all of the drugs that we take, so that is going to get overwhelmed. Then we also see that it does not balance our hormones. It simply masks the symptoms we're experiencing and can not only contribute to existing hormonal imbalances, but can lead to new hormonal imbalances. So we see a lot of women coming off the birth control pill and they're dealing with estrogen dominance. They have way too much estrogen in their body. They're having an androgen rebound where all of that testosterone's come flying back. And it also is going to be depleting key nutrients in your body. So you're going to be deficient in a lot of vitamins and minerals. So when you come off of it, your body has all of these new imbalances. And oftentimes women have been taking this since they were in their early teens, when your body isn't fully finished growing and your systems aren't finished, recalibrating and balancing themselves. So when they come off, their body's like, oh, okay, like I need to figure out what's going on. Like I've been on this medication, I've never had a true cycle, because when you're on the birth control pill, you don't get a real period. It's just a breakthrough bleed. Your brain has stopped talking to your ovaries. So a lot of systems have to come back online for the very first time.
Wow. When you put it like that and you think, wow, like so many of us were on it for over a decade, and you think to yourself, that insight you just gave there, a lot of people wouldn't fully know.
No.
And that's actually really frightening to understand that a good proportion of people with skin issues, it's off the back of been on some level of birth control for many years. And even it might be many years, it might be a short-term thing as well, that you only take it for a year, 2, 3, but it still, impacts the interactions in the body. And that part you wouldn't normally hear about as well. Obviously, you have to detox the medication out of your system. So that's another thing that's on the liver, as well as all the endocrine disruptors piece. And I presume that's something you would really focus on, is understanding in their environment what is endocrine disrupting. Because I was in Dubai a year and a half ago, and I was there for 5 months. And I was absolutely shocked at all the extra endocrine disruptors in different countries. So take Dubai for an example. Every place you go into has really strong air freshener. There's a lot of different cleaning products. There's just so many different things in that environment that I was like, wow, this is a lot extra than what I was used to in Ireland even. And so even understanding that, where somebody is, like you're working with people globally.
Yeah.
Different locations have different levels of endocrine disruptors. Understanding that alone, that I think even with my friendship group, lots of people are really focused on anti-age skin products, for example.
Absolutely.
So even looking at the different types of ingredients in them, understanding that because majority of people are using them doesn't mean it's beneficial to female health. And I think that's like a massive piece of...
Huge.
Yeah, and even this is my bread and butter, like what I do every day. And still, sometimes I'm like, I just want that skincare product because of what it's promising me in the marketing, and almost bypass what it's saying. Plus, the conversation around clothes and materials, and your skin is a porous organ. And I was so excited to ask you about this because there's so much talk now about, a lot of brands are popping up that are 100% cotton or GOTS and just like more linen, and people are trying to be more sustainable, but also knowing the skin is absorbing the chemicals, materials, dyes in these clothes. And I would predict in the next 1 or 2 decades, a lot of these materials, people will be very, very aware because of data that they're very damaging to the gut, especially in the microbiome, but also how just wearing these types of clothes, even sweating into normal, very well-known brands like Lululemon, Sweaty Betty, is what could be really damaging for your health. And I would love to hear your take on that.
I'm so glad we're talking about this because this is actually how I got into the health and wellness world. Is my mom bought me this book when I was probably like 22. And it's called There's Lead in Your Lipstick by a Canadian author. And I was like, Mom, there's no way. I have a 6-foot-long makeup table growing up, all hair, makeup, MAC products, like all of the high name stuff because I was a big beauty girly. And I was like, Mom, there's no way. And I remember sitting on my bedroom floor with the book and starting to flip over the cans and the bottles and the products. I was like, what are you kidding? There's not just one hormone disruptor. There's multiple. There's cancer-causing ingredients. And I remember I basically just like swiped it all into a garbage can and was like, I can't wear any of this. So I started to really obsess over beauty products because that was my bread and butter. I did it. I wore it all the time. So I slowly started to change this when I was in university. And then when I ended up going back to school to study nutrition, because I was working in television at the time, I originally wanted to do like non-toxic living, but this was like 15 years ago. So nobody cared about non-toxic living then. And I ended up going into acne, but I weaved so much of that work into acne work because for decades and decades, we have no idea that the endocrine disruptors in our personal care products, in our makeup, in baby products, in our everyday cleaning products, in food store, like you name it, there is endocrine disruptors and harmful chemicals. So we've really weaved that into our education, whether it's, our social media, it's what we're teaching our clients, is being very aware of the endocrine disruptors in your environment, because you can be doing all of the gut rebalancing, detoxification, hormone work, all of that. But if you're slathering on and breathing in hormone disrupting chemicals every single day, your body is really going to notice it. And I remember in this book, I think the stat was the average woman applies 136 chemicals before she leaves the bathroom in the morning.
Oh, easily. When you think of all the different ingredients in each product.
No way, right? It's like, think of every product you're applying from your shower to your getting ready routine. And back in the day, they were like, oh, we're just going to grandfather in all of these toxic chemicals that not do any testing. And we're only going to test when someone complains about it. And sure, they might have done very limited safety testing on how the ingredients within that product interact, but there's no way of doing testing on how do the ingredients in product A interact with products B. So if you're applying this sunscreen on top of this makeup on top of this, we have no idea how this chemical cocktail is impacting our body.
That's a very good point. I've never really thought about the interaction of the different layers you're putting on. Because obviously there's very few people that are just using one range of skincare. Like my skincare is multiple pieces from different brands. So of course we don't think about that interaction between, certain acid you're putting on your skin. For years I was like that person who was like so interested in like putting on the different chemical peels and masks and all that. And when you really look into it, you're like, wow, this is highly unregulated. It's definitely it's definitely not studied on females long term. Actually, we are completely in the dark about what this is doing long term health. It's funny when you look at that, right? We're a little bit more ahead with the skincare now that people are understanding what's in it. But it's so funny. I have 2 friends, and one is a nutritionist and she focuses on like longevity and biohacking. Okay, so dialed into what she is.
I bet
no chemicals on her skin. All her clothes are natural fibers, right? Then I have another friend And she works in an industry which she would be exposed to a lot of toxins. She would put on like any kind of thing that's marketed on TikTok. She would be like, yeah, I want that. Like, it doesn't matter what's in it. Her clothes she wears, she doesn't mind about the materials at all. Like, they're polar opposites. And it's so funny. One day I was speaking to both of them and I had to laugh because I was like, wow, like I'm probably somewhere in the middle, but a lot of people are more on the side of my friend that is, it's not even on a radar. Like, she's putting on spray deodorant. One day she was like, don't look, I'm putting on my spray deodorant. And I was like, don't, I don't want to see that.
That would be me and my girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
Don't look, Katie.
Don't tell her. So yeah, it really made me think though, like that is the majority of people that really are like, oh, you know what? If it really did me harm, it wouldn't be on the market, which is not true.
Not true.
It's really
crazy.
It really isn't true. And I think the more we understand lately, even now it's really becoming clear that, you know, there's so little data on anything to do with women that especially this is going to be like in 20 years time, our kids are going to be like, why are you so stupid? Like, why did you listen to the marketing? Don't we all know that marketing isn't real? Don't we all know it's just to get you to buy something? But we're still in that generation that's like, but I'm believing people have integrity and I'm believing this is the truth. But now understanding that that's not the case. In many
so
instances.
Unfortunate.
It is.
Very, yeah.
And finding like the brands and finding things that align with you does take time. And a lot of women just don't have the bandwidth or they're overwhelmed to even make any changes. So I think that's one that probably you would have to do a lot of work with clients to actually get them in the headspace that it's possible to make changes without them just being like, oh, I just want to stay what I'm doing. It's too overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because ignorance is bliss, right? It truly is. Sometimes I tell my husband, I'm like, man, remember when life was so much easier when I didn't know any of this stuff? And he's like, yeah, and cheaper. It was way easier and cheaper then.
Are you that couple on social media that does like, you know, my wife is into health and then you have like the $1,000 water filter and that's your house.
Yeah, and I like to say my husband has Stockholm syndrome. Like, he's drank the Kool-Aid, he's on board, but he's still like, Katie, I just wish sometimes.
We were just like everyone else.
We were just like everybody else. I'm like, too bad, you married me. This is what you're stuck with.
You can't unlearn it now. Sorry.
You can't. That's the thing. You can't unlearn it. And with our clients, we are really big about teaching them this because information is power, and it's so empowering when you're able to start to learn what's in your environment. And I would never tell someone listening, say, hey, you got to break up with all of this tomorrow if you want to be healthy. It's not realistic. So I always say, as you run out of things or you need to switch things in your house, why don't you look for a healthier option? So an example is, let's say your Tupperware is looking pretty sad, right? It's stained, it's plastic. You're like, yeah, I need something new. Maybe let's switch over to glass food storage containers as the next thing you're going to swap. And making these small little swaps over months and over years. Like, I didn't wake up and do this the next day. I've, been living this lifestyle for over 15 years now. And I did this very slowly over time as I needed to switch things.
And that's the key. I actually, there was one point I did a lot of work with lymphatic drainage and also about endocrine disruptors with clients. And I was like, whoa, these people, like, they're predominantly coming for nervous system regulation. So I can't present something that's too overbearing. So it was like that, going about it like, okay, every time something runs out, you're going to replace it with a better option. Yeah, on that moment, on that day, you'll have to do a bit of research to find the new alternative because it's not familiar yet. But that's the way to do it. Like, you hit the nail on the head there. It's gradual. And understanding as well, it is going to be like really annoying initially to have to bother order it and it's so funny, like with the nervous system, when something becomes familiar, it's no longer overwhelming as long as you take that first initial step of something different. And do you do much research or talk about, or is it on your radar, the clothes piece?
Yes, it is. So that's something I haven't delved into personally yet because I was a hardcore Lululemon. And if I told my husband I had to replace all my Lululemon clothes, he might have an aneurysm. So I'm going to start doing this slowly. But it's been so big, I find, in the last couple of years on social media, right, is learning that all of these really popular companies that we wear every day have these chemicals that are absorbing into our body. And I think you're right. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're really going to see that shift into non-toxic clothing, especially because, there's been so much talk around the period underwear and there being forever chemicals in period underwears. And of course, the vaginal area is such an absorbable part of the body. So really learning to become aware, and that's another piece. It's not like we're telling you to go out, burn all your clothes on the front lawn and go buy a new whole wardrobe. But the next time you need a new pair of pants, new pair of workout, do you want to do a little bit of digging and say, okay, what would be a healthier alternative than Lululemon or one of the big brands? Where can I find a more natural thing? Because, clothes aren't going to last forever. So as you need to swap them out, just slowly start changing them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I remember as recently I saw a video and it spoke about like, you know, in the 50s and they were really promoting like a vaginal wash and it was just
Yes.
full of chemicals. And I just thought at the time a woman felt like dirty or ashamed if she wasn't using something like that. And I just thought, wow, the irony of something that actually destroys your gut microbiome and really creates internal damage was promoted as something that was really important. But also now that them products are still on the market, just remembering something like that, like the vagina cleans itself. You don't need an external product to do this. It's just understanding. I think that's such an amazing example for me when I understand that things are not regulated. Just because it's on the market doesn't mean it's good for you. And really understanding that just because it's positioned in a kind of way that's shame-inducing, more people are going to buy it. So
absolutely,
the clothes as well. I think we're at a period now where it's quite there is resistance to changing because the clothes in natural fibers are not that stylish yet. They're not really, you know, they're really
not.
I went on this the last year, really trying to make a capsule wardrobe that's mainly natural fibers, and I'm telling you, it's taken serious effort. And a lot of what I do have is extremely basic, and I would do a lot of exercise. I would exercise probably 6 days a week for at least an hour. I'm always in the gym or running. And that's the hardest part for me, like finding a sports bra that is non-toxic. I was like, I wish I had A-cup boobs. Okay, I don't have a big chest, but they're not.
Neither do I.
You know, they're not an A.
I don't make up.
And I was like, actually, I would love to, because that's everything that's non-toxic material has no support. So I was just like, wow, there's a lot of barriers here. Like there really needs to be. There are a few brands like Pact and a few others that do it, but again, it's not been done amazingly yet. It's just not there. So I'm really hoping that will improve because it did take me.
We should do it, Becca. That's what I hear. You and I need to start a stylish women's workout line.
I would love it. I actually thought the other day, I am chronically online because you're probably the same, your whole business online. I was like, imagine having something in person. That could be it.
That could be it. I know.
I feel like there's such a huge gap. And I'm 6 foot tall, so 183 centimeters. That's very tall for a woman. And I was like, okay, this would be hard if I was average height. This is extra hard when you're tall.
Yeah.
Because like all the main brands like Gymshark, Lululemon, all the big ones, they all do cater for people that are tall. Okay. But the brands that are smaller, less budget, less marketing don't. They just have for like the most bought.
The most average person.
The most average person. So yeah, there's definitely issues. And I just thought recently, like it probably is one of the ones that people don't take into consideration that may be damaging the gut. The clothes part. I know that's like a loose connection. But of course, if you're like regularly sweating into fibers that aren't natural, that is going to be absorbed into the skin. That is going to make a difference to your system.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because we have a topical microbiome. We always think our microbiome's internally in the gut, but your skin has its own microbiome. Your vagina has its own microbiome. And I think the vaginal microbiome is going to be an area of health that's really going to explode in the next few years because I've been seeing little inklings of it here and there. And like you had said earlier with like the vaginal washes, so many women are like, oh, I have to use the vaginal washes or else I get a yeast infection. And I'm like, well, that tells us that your vaginal microbiome is completely off and we need to rebalance it. And then if we're sweating in these synthetic fibers, like whether it's our underwear, it's, you know, the workout shorts that we're wearing, that'll start to absorb and that can be impacting, you know, our microbiome. So it's really just becoming aware. And I think you're right. The clothing piece is going to be huge over the next few years. And I think more companies will start to get a little more stylish with it.
I hope so, because it was difficult. And that's really interesting when you talk about the vaginal microbiome, but also understanding that with the gut, a lot of the time, less is more. So we're actually, as I always say, like the body's working so hard to keep you healthy. Mm-hmm. And we're doing things unknowingly to stop it. So like, you know, using the vaginal wash, putting other topical creams, like one really underlooked one is like the moisturizer you use in your body every day.
Yes.
Like that's like huge. Wow. And when you're going to start doing these changes, like the very first place you go is like, what's the thing that's impacting me the most? Your underwear. Okay. Mm-hmm. You know, you like your knickers and your bra, but also what you're topically putting on the majority of your body most days. And like, that's a good place to start, I think, because it's so easy to be like, oh, that cream is just like €6 and that'll do me for a month. That's just
exactly
easy. So it is, yeah, there's resistance initially. And I think recognizing that is important because I would look on social media sometimes and see women that are living like off grid in all their natural linen dresses. And I'm like, wow, I'm never going to be like that. That is not the way I live.
That's on me. And good for them. Love that.
Good for you. You do you. But wow, that I'm so far away from that. It seems like a dream almost that I'm like, but how am I going to make this fit in like a very average lifestyle of like living mainstream, essentially? It's finding that like middle ground of how, you know, they're definitely the minority of people that are fortunate enough to live that lifestyle, or maybe unfortunate, depending on what you want, your values. It's just like really interesting. How is it going to change for people, and for millennials especially, where we're like really fed that narrative of like, we're in between, where we're like, everything's fine if it's on the market, don't worry about it. You know, just you'll die anyway.
We've waited this far.
We've got it. And I think that's a major thing that people say. And especially now, I'm like bashing my head off the wall with my parents sometimes. They're like, sure, it's fine. Didn't you grow up like that? And I was like, no, we didn't. My 2 kids are living a really different upbringing to what we lived, because 30 years ago, there wasn't this many endocrine disruptors. There wasn't these dyes and chemicals on these clothes. We didn't have so much access to highly processed food. 30 years ago, there wasn't a fraction of highly processed food in the market. So it's like understanding you can have that narrative if you want. Like, weren't her grandparents fine? Didn't they smoke till they were 107? Yeah, okay. But they're probably in the minority. We need to try and do the best we can now.
Absolutely.
And that is going to take a few effortful changes. I know you want to be a bit carefree about it, but I think we need to probably double down and realise that some things are damaging. So yeah, not a fun thing to talk about, but I think really needed. And I hope whoever is listening to this does share this with friends, because it's going to really help your friends and family to hear things like this, especially if you have skin issues, but also if you're noticing like there's probably a lot of people that are really unaware of this. It's really good to share this message, I think. And even listening to you, it's been so powerful to hear. You're so succinct at explaining things in a really easy way to digest. So I think a lot of people will resonate with that, but it will also land more easily, because it's not this overly complicated scientific thing. It's just understanding the basic mechanisms that and the pathways that can lead to symptoms like skin. So yeah, I'm loving this conversation. One question I wanted to ask you: what is something you would wish all women knew about skin health overall? Because I think we've touched on a lot of things that probably people, you know, didn't really know about skin health. But what's the one that you're like, God, I wish I could like really promote this to the masses?
I always want it to be that acne is an external symptom of an internal issue. Skin issues in general, you could say. Skin issues are an external symptom of an internal issue. And it's not that you haven't found the right cleanser or that, you know, you need to find the right medication. You can absolutely get rid of the symptom of acne by rebalancing your body systems and getting them working in an optimal way in order to clear up that issue. That's the number one thing, because I think it's such a myth that you have acne because your skincare isn't right or you're not washing your face. It really is an internal issue.
Yeah. And when it comes to the chronic stress, low-grade stress, long-term dysregulation, I'd love for people to, and you're going to explain this really nicely, for people to understand how, number one thing, let's say, you know, step A is you're dysregulated and chronically stressed. And then your symptom of that is skin issues. What is happening between the stress and manifesting in a skin issue?
It's such a huge issue and people never want to accept it. I think this is another big thing that people need to hear, is that your nervous system and your emotional well-being is one of the biggest things you can work on for your skin. And we have seen miracles happen when clients finally accept that. And I think the issue is that, you know, regulating your nervous system, reducing stress, it isn't fun and sexy. It's not cool and trendy. Everyone's like, just give me a supplement to take. I'll take DIM. I'll take a period gummy. Like, just give me these things. I don't need to worry about my stress. I'm not stressed. I'll hear that a lot. Oh, no, I'm not stressed. Then we get like their labs back. We're like, well, your body's saying something else. Like you may not feel like your brain may not feel stressed, but your body is feeling that stress. So it's remembering that when you're in a chronic state of fight or flight, when that nervous system is completely dysregulated, it's going to be impacting your cortisol. It's going to be sending like when your cortisol is impacted, it's cascading impact to all of your hormones. Our hormones are all working together. So it's not like just your cortisol is going to get impacted. And when your cortisol gets impacted, it can actually be increasing sebum production in the skin, which is the sticky, oily substance that clogs pores and leads to breakouts. It's also going to raise inflammation in the body. A lot of people don't realize that past emotional traumas, if we don't work through them, they live rent-free in the body and they create dis-ease. this has been, you know, a new realm of health and wellness that I find has been talked about in the last like 5 or so years, because there's still so much of a disconnect that, oh, like my emotional traumas and these traumas that happened to me 20 years ago, they can't be impacting my health now, when they absolutely can. So we are always driving clients. How can we be, you know, we can't get rid of all stress in our life. We can't just quit life and go sell coconuts on a beach, unfortunately. So how can we help our body adapt better? Can we be setting better boundaries? Can we be learning to say no? Can we be telling ourselves that it's okay to rest? You know, your to-do list will always be there. So take time for you, start getting better sleep, finding these little pockets of 5 minutes in your day where maybe you're doing some deep breathing, you're going and standing outside in nature, you're, you know, maybe you like to meditate or do tapping. Like, what are the things that we can weave into your day that isn't going to be an extra thing, but is going to help regulate your nervous system?
Oh, that was put so nicely. And I think as well, there's the acknowledgement needed that, you know, all the things you mentioned of like the simple things we do to regulate, they're simple, but they're not easy, because we're stuck in patterns of our familiar is stress. And I think it's really important for people to acknowledge that you can do a lot of the regulation tools, just like the specific vagus exercises, the breath work, but you have to think about what happens between them tools and deeply understand that a lot of them patterns of, you know, improving the sleep hygiene, because usually you doom scroll at night because that's the time you can numb out or dissociate. Understand them patterns are deeply ingrained. And that's why I think that ultimately why nervous system regulation people can really shy away from it, because they're like, I know this is going to be not simple. Like this
Not fun.
This is going to poke at me in multiple ways and expose different pieces of what's keeping me stuck in dysregulation. So yeah, really great to start with the simplistics of it and then slowly going deeper into what's really going to help you regulate, because I think you're so right. There's so much women that think, and I would have in the past for sure, that I wasn't actually dysregulated or stressed, but my body, even if I wasn't psychologically, my body was under extreme stress because of lack of nutrients, even though maybe enough calories, but lack of nutrients, which is very common, and so many other things like the wrong type of exercise, just slightly suboptimal sleep. And they are all massive stressors on the body.
Huge.
And some women as well, less stress tolerance to specific things, you know, depending on your body. And then also past, we'll say 40s, progesterone maybe is a bit lower. So again, we have less stress resilience. So taking all them things into account, again, these are all very connected to your skin health. So I absolutely love that. Where can people find you? Because I really, really loved that conversation. I feel a lot of people will get so much out of that. Even if you don't have skin issues, you will still get a huge amount out of this, because your skin doesn't stay the same your entire life. Like, as you said, the 36-year-old woman could be getting acne and never have had a skin issue in her life. So I think no matter what age you are, it's very, very important to understand and all the mechanisms around female health. So I love that.
I'm really big on female health in general. Everything we talked about, it's not just for skin. Like, these are foundational health elements that are going to really reduce your risk of bigger diseases later on in life, right? Because we're recalibrating. And if you want to come and hang out with me, you can find me at Katie Stewart Wellness across all the different platforms, and then our podcast, Keep It Clear.
And we'll link that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much, Katie. I love that.
Thank you. This has been so fun.
Bye. If this episode resonated, especially if you feel dismissed, frustrated, or blamed for your skin issues, I really encourage you to share it with someone who needs to hear that their body isn't broken. I know I would have loved to hear this a few years ago. Katie's core message is one I come back to again and again. Skin issues are not random. They are not superficial, they are signals. And when you understand the signals, you can stop fighting the body and start working with it. You can find Katie on Instagram at Katie Stewart Wellness, and her podcast is Keep It Clear. I'll link everything below in the show notes. And if this conversation helped you connect the dots between stress, hormones, gut health, and symptoms like acne, this is the exact work I do within Regulate, Rebalance, Reset course. It's where we build the foundations of regulation first so the body can respond. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.